Let's begin our new session. Artificial intelligence is not just a new technology. It changes how we work and think. With over 12 years of experience in change management and digital transformation, Mariya will show us how to prepare teams for future where change is constant. Please welcome Mariya Koteva. The stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. Let me just get used to a handheld microphone. Okay, so are we ready to start? Good. I would like to start with a bold statement. We've been training AI to optimize everything. But we're kind of missing the part where we help humans to actually start coping with it. We don't really look into, are we ready? Are people keeping up with what's going on? With AI, we can predict customer churn, we can optimize supply chains, we can generate code, PowerPoints, everything in the speed of light. But yet, every time, with every major transformation, we stumble across the same problem. And this is our people. I'm sure you know it. Big or small projects, right? Every time we have the same risk factor. Why? Because if our people are not ready, if they're not prepared, if they don't feel ready to deal with the new change, to work differently, nothing sticks. Definitely not in the long term. Because the hardest system to upgrade is not your technology, it's the human nervous system. Stay with me, I'll come back to this one. My name is Mariya Koteva, and I'm the founder of Inside Dynamics. I spent the last 13 years leading global ERP transformations and digital transformations as well, not only ERP. 6 of those 13 years, I've done that alongside Microsoft, which means that I've had the chance to work with the biggest teams, Fortune 500, complex architectures, cutting-edge technologies. And of course, those beautiful sandboxes where everything is perfect until the customer actually logs in. So years after years, project after project, go live after go live, a few gray hairs in the meantime, a certain pattern started to evolve. Something that we rarely quantify, very often overlook, kind of like a blind spot. And this is, of course, again, our people. But not only about how they adopt, but their energy, their readiness, and what it really takes for them to adapt to what is changing. And then it looks like we just design things like we're building a new house, a smart house, but we don't even stop or pause to ask, is there anybody actually interested in living in that house, or do they even know how to turn the lights on? We focus so much on the system that we forget that the system is only as powerful as the people using it. So with every engagement, what became clear is that no matter what architecture we have, how clear the roadmap is or how clear your communication plan is, we still go back to the same problem. People are not ready, and then nothing sticks. That was always the case in ERP and related technology, but it is now even more in AI. And why is that? What is now different? AI has raised the stakes entirely because in ERP and related technology, we changed workflows. We identified processes, we optimized them, we trained people, we managed resistance. Yes, it was messy, I admit. But it was kind of expected, even though it was hard. AI brings something different. It doesn't just change the what, it challenges the why and completely rewrites the who. People, and we need to change how we think, how we decide, how we take those decisions, and even how we define our own value at work. And then, if we think about it like this, rolling out AI is no longer a technology rollout, or not alone. It really becomes the test of human adaptability. I'll come back to that one as well. Before that, let me take you back to early 2020. 2 months before the corona hit, I became a mother. It's always the part I get emotional. Those first months, total blur. My partner and I were shifting roles like it was a go-live weekend with no war room. And to be honest, we didn't really have a detailed hypercare plan. Yeah. In the meantime, consultancy didn't stop for me. Sorry, I need to get used to that. Consultancy didn't stop for me. I cared so much about the customer, the project, the team, and maybe I misunderstood loyalty. So I kept going. Then lockdown hit. Of course, what is a major life transformation without a global crisis on top, right? And then, as you can feel it already, it didn't go smooth. I started feeling exhausted. My body was waving red flags. Totally tired, pain everywhere. I couldn't even go through the day, let alone be the mom I wanted to be, the partner I wanted to be, the professional I dreamt to be. And I didn't even know why. And the harder I pushed, the harder it became, the less capacity I had to think clearly, to take decisions, to even stay patient. And that collapse is terrifying. And this is something that no one prepares you for, right? Not in motherhood and definitely not in corporate world, is that when your body starts giving signals, but the world still expects performance, and when you're leading change for others, but you can't seem to hold it for yourself. That moment cracked something in me. And if you know me a bit, some of you here do, thank you for joining. I'm rather rebellious. I know, I feel sorry for my husband as well. But I'm also very curious. So I did what every brilliant consultant does when the systems break. I started analyzing the system, except this time the system was me. So I really I needed to know why the drive, determination, and discipline that had always worked before suddenly wasn't working. So I went back to school and dived into neuroscience, psychoneuroimmunology, and lifestyle medicine. These are all fields that explain how our brain, endocrine system, and our immune system constantly negotiate between adaptation and protection. And what I found was not just relevant for me, but it was relevant for every team I had worked on. It really became apparent to me that change is not just challenging our thinking, change is challenging our entire biology. Now, let's talk about biology in a moment, right? So our brain's one and only goal is to keep us alive, to survive, to reproduce. That's it. Pure nature laws. So brain, endocrine system, immune system, they all work together to make this happen. And to save you all the studying, let me summarize it. It's all about energy. Okay, so everything in our bodies, everything that happens from creativity, cognition, adaptability, you name it, everything depends on how we use and how we protect our energy. But our modern lives are designed in a way that drain that energy. We sit the whole day, we eat the whole day. Yes, that coffee with milk is a meal. Yes. And what's different, why is that a problem? Because what's different from the way our ancestors used to live out there in the nature is either stress for us or triggers immune system activation, right? Because these are all things that are unknown to our Asian genes. We have not evolved that fast, luckily, honestly. So evolution has given us two ways to protect: stress, fight or flight, you better run from that tiger, right? Or immune system activation, you better kill that virus before it kills you. That's it, two ways. And we still operate like this today. But our world has shifted tremendously. Here is what science shows. Every change first runs through the brain's survival filter. Is this safe? If the answer is uncertain, the brain triggers a stress response, releases cortisol, adrenaline, the body focuses and prepares for defense. If that state lasts too long, the next system kicks in. The endocrine and the immune systems get activated. And what happens is that then immune system activation, that takes a lot of energy. So it literally, energy gets redirected from your cognition, your cognitive capacity, your creativity into body repair and protection. You go quite literally into survival mode. Okay? And that's why we say that change starts at biological level. Change capacity is not psychological first, it's biological first. And then it goes to psychological level. Because when the body is protecting, the brain cannot adapt. When the brain cannot adapt, you cannot learn new things. You cannot switch to the next gear. You stay in survival mode. You're burning energy, you're not building it. So, if you know all about this, then adaptability is no longer just a concept, right? It is real capacity. And it's the capacity that determines whether we build momentum or we burn out. And this adaptability is the capacity that we quite often forget to measure when we implement change. And here we are, ushering in AI, going so fast, we're innovating, we're disrupting, expecting people to shift how they think, how they decide, how they work almost overnight. But if we don't understand what change demands from the human system, how can we lead anyone through it? Want to help me with a small experiment? Cross your arms the way it's most comfortable for you. That's nice, right? Good. Now uncross them and cross them the other way. That feels awkward, right? Slightly awkward, yes. Well, that's your brain detecting novelty. Something's different. Are we safe? Within seconds, though, if you stay with the crossed arms like this in the non-nature way, you will notice that you start to adapt. It's no longer as awkward as in the first second, right? So, and every change starts like this. Awkward first, automation follows. Disruption first, recovery follows. The trick is not to avoid discomfort. This is not the message. The trick is really to have the capacity to recover fast so you can learn from it. Because learning means adaptation. And adaptation means change, right? But talking about this, why do we seem to be less and less able to recover fast and to learn fast? And this is bringing us to the bigger picture. That awkward moment you felt when you crossed your arms the other way, the non-nature way, imagine feeling that or doing that 500 times a day at your work. Because that's the real pace of change. And then imagine what happens when the real pace of change happens for everybody at the same time. That explains why we're so overloaded and so undercapacitated to deal with change. According to the Accenture's Pools of Change Index, the pace of change has increased with 183% since 2019. And 1/3 of that is accounted only for the last year alone. And most leaders expect it to keep accelerating. So today truly is the slowest day of the rest of your lives. What is even more scary is that more than half of the executives and even more of the employees say that they're not ready for what's coming in 2026. And this is not a change resistance. It is a capacity crisis. This is the growing gap between how much transformation our business demands and how much our human system can metabolize without breaking. Now, what happens inside one person during stress? Of course, it also happens in our teams, because we're just a composition of people, right? And every system, whether it's human or corporate, protects what keeps it alive. It has the same instincts. Now, add modern lifestyle to it, what we already talked about, right? Poor sleep, endless notifications, unbalanced meals. And you get your prefrontal cortex to literally go offline, the part responsible for planning, creativity, cognitive capacity. We stop collaborating. We start protecting. We are not resisting change. We're just trying to survive it. And that's when, probably you can relate, brilliant teams start acting like toddlers in the middle of the implementation. Ringing bells? Yeah. They're not difficult. They're just being depleted. And yet, what do we usually do when epics start slipping from sprint to sprint? We push harder. Which translates into, let's keep ignoring the warning signs for another quarter and see what happens. But I promise you, the body always collects its debt. I knew. I lived it. And also the pattern is always the same. When the cost of change becomes bigger than the available energy, the adaptability, your own and that of your team, will clash. Because again, change doesn't fail because people resist it. It fails because people are running out of the fuel they need to sustain it. And that feels like resistance. To sum up what we talked so far, adaptability consumes energy, right? Every new habit, every new rewiring, it's basically an energy transaction in your body. So if you want to build truly ready teams, we can't just design for engagement and mindset. We need to design for energy. And we'll come back to that as well. By now, I talked a lot about adaptability, I know, so let me give it a framework. We all know about IQ measuring intelligence, EQ measuring emotional intelligence, or our capability to connect with others in a meaningful way. But the currency of this decade is AQ, or adaptability quotient. And AQ is your capacity to absorb change, to metabolize it, and to transform it into a new behavior. It's how fast you can fall, learn, and recalibrate without losing your energy or trust in people around you. So when your AQ is high, you stay creative under pressure. Everything seems to flow. When your AQ is low, you start to freeze, defend, disengage. Also ringing bells? Here is the rebellious truth, though. AQ is not something you get born with, right? That this is good news. AQ is like a muscle. You can build it by constantly repeating the friction, rest, and repetition. Exactly how you train in the fitness. And adaptability is not just individual, right? It is, but when we move to organization, it becomes collective. So we need to think about from an organizational perspective, what does that mean for us? And every team is a mix of different biological operating systems, if I can call it like that. And that wiring is ancient. Some of us thrive on novelty, some of us anchor on stability. And to make it more clear, this is not about personality types, not at all. This is really about biology and how, literally how our brains react in the face of change. There are two operating systems. You can also call them survival programs, and they are known as hunters and farmers. When change hits, both hunters and farmers go through the same initial stress response we already talked about, right? The brain detects novelty, the cortisol and adrenaline are released, you prepare for defense and so on. So this is all the same. But what follows after that is what differs between the two operating systems. Let's first explore what they are before we talk about change. So the hunter system is the more ancient one, right? In the beginning, all the ancestors were hunters. So that program evolved for novelty, for speed, literally survival by exploration. They had to change new hunting grounds, they had to adapt to shifting perspectives, different threats, new conditions, and so on. So the nervous system is wired for rapid decisions, for bursts of intensity, and for rewarding novelty, right? So these are your innovators, early adopters at work, and so on. So when change hits hunters, they have a faster recovery loop. Novelty for them equals opportunity. Stress, the signals of stress, gets turned into a signal of curiosity, right? They want to explore, they get excited about it. Their wiring literally rewards that. And if you want to shut down a hunter, drown them into monotony and micromanagement. On the other side, the farmer program came later, right, when agriculture appeared. That's the biology of stability when ancestors switched to agriculture. The farmers, they built our civilizations through methodology, repeated processes, mastering the same over and over again, staying patient with sustained energy going forward. So these are really your controllers, your project operators, your subject matter experts in your company. But when change or uncertainty hits the farmers, they need longer time to repair from stress because their brain is searching for familiar patterns before the nervous system can relax again. Compare it to the hunters, where the dopamine hit was coming from the novelty and the exploration. The dopamine hit here comes from predictability and control. Completely different responses, okay? If you want to burn out a farmer, well, give them cows and constant pivots. So the same change event hits them differently. Challenge for hunters, threat for the farmers. And there is no wrong or right. There is no one cool kid and the other one is not. Totally not. They're both complementary and they're absolutely needed for survival. Again, not personality types. Hunters explore new territory. The farmers are gonna scale it or sustain it. One keeps you evolving, the other one keeps you alive. So you cannot live without any of them. But if you don't design your organizations for both reactions, you're gonna have a situation where your hunters are frustrated and your farmers are anxious. And this is the moment where your transformation stalls. And what is the problem? Why did I explain all of this? Because most of our organizations are farmer wired, 70 to 80%, typical the distribution here. They are built with the steadiness, with the processes, with the predictability, and so on. Nothing wrong about it. How do we announce transformation? Leaders come up and say, in fully hunter language, let's move fast, let's innovate, let's disrupt. And it's not because all of them are hunters, not at all, but they think they need to behave like this in order to make this stick. While we all, and they all, operate farmer systems that reward, process, and control. So, did you change the incentive? Did you incentivize people to suddenly go and explore? Right? Who perceives how this message in the organization? We'll come back to strategy. And that moment, you're sitting there in the middle of that message and think like, what is going on? This transformation feels like a warfare because our culture is fighting the biology inside of us, how we think and how we operate. Okay, how do we move now from understanding human biology to building organizations that actually prepare teams for constant change? Adaptability cannot just be a phase, right? Change capacity cannot be a project in your organization. This has to become a strategic objective, a long-term strategic initiative in your organization. It has to sit on the top. Again, because you have to incentivize the right behavior. You cannot say one thing and incentivize the other. So involve HR in the conversation, make them report to the CEO instead of being hidden under admin. Change capacity needs to sit next to finance and tech on the dashboard. How about adding change capacity checkpoints in your next steerco? Ask, do we have the capacity to go through the next change? Do we have the energy to go to the next phase? And if you don't, pause, refuel, stabilize. It's time we stop thinking about this as weakness, but as maintenance. You do that with your car, right? You stop, you fuel, you take it to maintenance. So it's not so revolutionary. Next one. Let's experiment now quickly how your inner biology shows up at work. Think about your last team meeting. When somebody said, I have a new idea, what was your first instinct? Awesome, let's hear it out. Or your stomach tightened, what was wrong with the last one? Congratulations, you've just met your inner hunter or farmer. Again, one is not better than the other. They're both necessary. And our job as leaders is not to pick sides. It's to design the environment so they both can work in the right rhythm, so they both can do their best. Without hunters, nothing new happens. Without the farmers, nothing sticks. So what do we do then? Well, we can start easily with assessing the team composition. How many farmers versus how many hunters? And then we design the work for both systems. For hunters, build short, controlled experimentation rounds, celebrate curiosity before perfection. For farmers, make sure you create safety bridges, that they understand what stays the same before what changes next. And don't try to go faster than farmers can anchor it, and don't stagnate more than the hunters can tolerate. My favorite one about the energy, support recovery and nutrition. Whatever it takes you, get yourself to sleep properly and your team. And please measure it. The results will be different. Pick healthy meals with real food. Because pasta, bread, pizza, that's never existed in nature. Why is this important? Because sleeping 6 hours or less tanks your next day productivity with 20%, and eating one high-carb lunch slashes your efficiency with 1/4 for the whole afternoon. So that despair moment at 3 p.m. is not a motivational issue, it's blood sugar dysregulation. And then you have it on the spot. Your body turns energy into survival. It switches. You're no longer cognitive capable of performing the task you're supposed to. Your prefrontal cortex needs constant fuel, oxygen, time to think. If your calendar looks like a game of Tetris, your brain cannot do strategy. It can only do survival. And if your smartwatch starts congratulating you for standing up during meetings, that's also cry for help. So teams that move, breathe, I don't know if you managed to go to the presentation, and rest together, they don't just feel better. It's not about only well-being, but I promise you, your life is going to be much better. But it's not only about that. They learn much faster. And energy drives neuroplasticity, and neuroplasticity drives change. And that takes us to the last point about building cognitive flexibility. Again, adaptability is a muscle, but it's not trained in a workshop. It's trained by micro moments where we let certainty meet curiosity. The fastest way to build it is not by big change, but exposing us to small intentional moments of novelty. Rotating rows, you can come up with something small every day. My most favorite one is I like to run pre-mortem analysis with my customers. Imagine that your project failed, reverse engineer it, see what went wrong, and learn from it. Those small elements, they're teaching our brains that uncertainty is safe and that curiosity turns into competence. And that's how you go from protection to exploration, from avoiding errors to exploring. Back to strategy. Do you have the right incentive for it, right? So if that is not coming from the top strategy, it will not work only in your own team, but you can start it. So neuroplasticity at work. That's how micro change turns into macro adaptability. Before I wrap up, I want to give you a small reflection and a challenge. Think about the rhythm you've been doing lately, and how would it look like this week to achieve more balance in it? Is it maybe the time to push harder or to take a step back so your next phase lands better? Whatever it is, just make it intentional. Because adaptability isn't built by pushing harder, but by learning when to push and when to pause. Staying in rhythm no matter what happens around you. Take a breath and feel that rhythm. That rhythm between acceleration and recovery, between human and technology, that is the rhythm, that is the future work. And our job is not to prepare people for the future of work. Our job is to redesign work so that it matches the biology and the capacity of the people who create it. Because the metric that will matter the most in that future of work is not your system uptime and is not a return on investment, but it will be the human capacity under constant change. And that is the people side of AI. Thank you.